A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, let's turn our attention to perhaps sharpening some skills in leadership. And whatever the setting, at home, in education or work, things can get to be chaotic. And we might be looking for some tips on turning chaos to calm. Well, Tarun Stevenson helps organisations with behaviour management and leadership coaching. He's a best-selling author with over a decade of experience in leadership coaching. He's also the pastor of a church called Authentic Church in Loganlea in Queensland. Hey, Tarun, welcome back to 2020.
Lovely to be with you again, Neil.
Hey, Tarun, if we're going to talk about being calm when we know that the circumstances get to be chaotic, how do you bring a sense of calm? Or do you have to take a sense of calm into the chaos? Where do we start with this?
You know, I didn't start life as a calm person. I actually started life as somebody who could be very easily frustrated. And one of the things I learnt along the way is that calm really is a state of mind before it's anything else. And our ability to manage our thoughts and regulate our thoughts as we move through life and as we interact with others is really the critical part of remaining calm in all sorts of circumstances.
The leader turns up. Perhaps let's just say the scenario in the workplace.
Sure.
And everything's already chaotic.
Yeah.
There are people with relationship difficulties. Someone feels hard done by. You've got others who are ladder climbing and others who are being climbed over. Resentment, jealousies, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
And you're the leader coming in. You're coming into an environment that needs something of the calmness that we might even think of as Christian believers as the peace of God, but actually making that happen, that's not so easy.
Yeah, well, calm is contagious. And as a leader, if you walk into an environment where there is already frustration or stress, people are going to look to you to set the tone for that environment. And if you can compose yourself, if you can communicate with a sense of self-control and a sense of assurance in the midst of the chaos, that will, if you like, feed the environment or feed the mood of the people that you lead. Because as a leader, people are looking to you to set the tone and to set the climate for the environment they work in.
I'm reminded of the scripture, and I can't tell you chapter or verse, but a quiet word turns away wrath.
Yeah.
Even when you feel as though you're getting a little overheated yourself, the capacity to be able to deliver a quiet word, that's going to actually contribute to some level of calm.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, at a very biological and psychological level, what's happening with a quiet word is the same thing that happens when we look after a baby that is distressed. A baby that is distressed is in their emotional survival brain, and a good parent will gently talk to that baby, will rock them. It's something called co-regulating, where you're helping them to regulate through your calm demeanor. And in the same way, when we interact with other people, if we come across with a gentle response, what it does is it helps to lower their stress levels through lowering their heart rate, lowering their adrenaline, and we are essentially co-regulating an unregulated person.
This is one of your favourites, isn't it? Talking about emotional regulation.
Yeah,
because somehow or other, if you find yourself in a leadership role, you are going to be overwhelmed at some point, and regulating those emotions is something that you're going to have to learn to do. How do you learn to be an emotional regulator?
Sure. So I think the easiest way to understand it is understanding how your brain works under pressure. We have two major systems in our brain. We have our emotional survival brain, and we have our executive brain, which helps us to think and problem solve. The emotional brain has no language, so it doesn't very well explain the world around us. And so when we're stressed, our emotions, if they take control, don't give us solutions, they give us reactions. And so one of the first things you can do is to think through very, if you like, pragmatically about the circumstance. Am I frustrated because of something that is in my control? Am I being reasonable about my frustration? Maybe it's just an unreasonable expectation I have. Are there solutions that I could look to that will help me to work through this problem? And if you can stay in your thinking brain, your executive brain, it helps to regulate your emotional brain. And because your emotional brain just goes to survival, I'm going to fight, I'm going to run away, or I'm going to shut down. And when you're in that state, you're unable to solve problems and you're unable to regulate yourself.
You know, some leaders, they are stressed before they get to work because they know what is ahead of them when they get to that chaotic environment. For a Christian believer who might have a daily devotion, perhaps in the morning, you know, waking up or just before you go to work, how important is it, do you think, to have that, I guess you could say, part of your emotional regulation, some sort of daily devotional?
Look, daily habits and practices really set you up for everything that comes after it. When you think about, say, a daily devotion, what you're doing is you're meditating on things that are positive, you're meditating on hope, you're meditating on possibility, and your thinking, as I mentioned earlier, really governs how you react to the rest of the day. And so if you have started your day meditating on things that are good, things that are hopeful and things that are positive, as you navigate through the day, that's going to form the foundation, if you like, of how you think and how you approach your problems and your frustration. So it has a powerful effect. And one of the things I think people underestimate with their thinking is your thinking governs your choices and your choices govern your experiences in life. And so if you're not enjoying the experiences that you're having in life, you've got to backtrack and ask yourself, how is my thinking shaping those choices? And can I change that thinking to experience the world differently? Okay,
so we're going to regulate our emotions before we get into the chaotic environment of a workplace that might be going crazy. Once you get into the workplace, you've turned up and you've done your best to try and regulate those emotions. Now I suspect you need to understand some skills about resolving some conflict. Because if you don't resolve the conflict, it just keeps going, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think there's a great story in the Old Testament about the prophet Elijah, and he's distressed. You know, he's just battled the prophets of Baal, and then he goes into this depression because Jezebel wants to kill him, and he complains to God that, you know, everyone's abandoned him, and it says that God put him into a deep sleep, and then God brought ravens to feed him. You know, most people who are distressed usually start, they're either tired or they're hungry or they're sick. And so when I'm working with people who are distressed, the first thing I'm asking myself is this person tired, hungry, or sick? And if they are, can we fix those problems? Do you want a cup of coffee? Do you want something to eat? Can we sit down and, you know, relax a little bit as we work through this? And if you can deal with some of the physical challenges, and then you move to, okay, what's the reality? Let's talk about the problem. Is it true? That's the greatest question you can ask yourself when you're distressed. When people are distressed, they tend to globalize or amplify the problem in a way that is untrue. You know, everyone hates me. That's what Elijah said. There's nobody that loves me. You know, and the message comes to Elijah. Well, there's still a remnant of people who are faithful to God, and you know, getting perspective in that situation or helping someone else gain perspective. Okay, you feel like everyone's against you, but is that actually true? Let's look at the facts. And that's bringing people into their executive brain, which helps to calm the emotion down, and then you can problem solve together as you resolve them pragmatically.
You know, I'm picturing turning up to work, you're the boss, and you recognise that maybe I'll get through some of the issues today if we do pizza for morning tea.
Sure.
Or, you know, a lot of bosses, chocolates for the staff. It leads to another concept. I mean, you might be familiar with Gary Chapman, who wrote the book, The 5 Love Languages.
Yeah, I love Gary.
I mean, we've got this all focused on our spouse and our family, but do some of those love language things, do you think, do they work in the workplace as well?
Oh, absolutely. They work in any relationship. And in fact, I actually reference the love languages in my leadership book as well, where if you understand what makes people tick, whether it is words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, if you go through the 5, it really, that taps into what we call the function or the motivator of people's behavior. Everyone's behavior is really a communication tool. They're behaving in that way because it gets them what they need. If you understand the need before you get to the behavior, then you can actually alleviate negative behaviors by just feeding the need.
Wow. Okay. Get your emotions regulated. Be prepared to face the day. Go to work with a certain gentleness that you might not have had before. Yeah. Get to know everyone on your team. Recognise they've got certain needs and their behaviours may actually be making a statement, and you'll be on your way to getting right those relationships and helping to calm your workplace.
Absolutely.
Hey, it leads us to some more obviously important issues around how you deal with some of these things, but we might have to wait for another day. Tarun Stevenson leads an organisation with behaviour management and leadership coaching. To connect with Tarun, TarunStevensonLeadershipCoaching.com. You can also connect with him at calmerclassrooms.today. And for those that might be in his immediate neighbourhood, Logan Lee in Queensland, authenticchurch.com.au. Tarun's the author of 3 books, Behaviour Management Essentials for Teachers, Calmer Leadership, Managing Difficult People, and Calming the ADHD Storm, a guide for parents. You can connect with him, calmerclassrooms.today. Hey, Tarun, I look forward to this on another day. Thanks so much for joining us on 2020.
Great to talk to you, Neil.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.